Happy 2026, everybody. I am Derrick Day, and he is.
I am Aaron Tomlinson.
And we are live on the show with no name. I always think about that. This episode made me think about the America song, "The Horse with No Name."
Oh yeah.
And I used to ask myself, I said, you're riding out in the desert for all these days. Surely you could have thought of a name for this horse by now. Surely you could have given it a name. Old Paint, Trigger,
Yeah, something. My horse's name was Trigger. That's funny. But when I was a kid, we had horses. My first horse that was mine was Trigger.
Wow. So anyway, it's a new year, and so we're doing a new show, and hope you guys missed us while we were gone, but we missed you. But before we get too far down the road, Aaron, you want to talk about what you have in the glass tonight?
Yeah. So I was telling you before we jumped on, we had amaretto sours, which is not a drink I think about, but we had them for New Year's Eve, and so I had some left over. So it's for those that don't know, amaretto liqueur, some sweet and sour, and a little bit of Sprite mixed in.
Yep.
So that's what I got. How about you?
Well, this I have some, my Bullet bourbon, which is like my go-to, and I'm splashing a little Topo Chico blueberry.
Oh my goodness!
Into it. And this Topo Chico blueberry, it doesn't have a lot of added sugar. It's only 10 calories per can, and total carbs three carbs for the whole can.
Oh,
so nice. It's like not really a diet drink, but it's low carb, and it's tasty, it's refreshing, and it adds something to the bourbon. It happens to kind of sharpen it.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what I'm drinking tonight, and so we don't actually have a topic tonight.
No name, no topic.
What's that?
No name, no topic.
No name, no topic. I mean, basically, we're going to freestyle like rappers in New York. We're just on and on to the break of dawn.
Don't get into dissing each other. Well.
Oh, wait a minute. But, I've been waiting to get back on the air, and I know that man. This has been some kind of year. And yeah. I was thinking about this, I had like 4 deaths this year, people close to me, including my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be of the mindset, why me? Why me? Why am I going through this? Like death after death after death. Sickness after sickness after sickness, and it was just overwhelming. But then I picked up on something, and now the question that I ask is, what is it that I was supposed to learn from this? What was the lesson here? Because there's a lesson in everything. We used to say back in our preaching days that people come into your life to be a blessing or a lesson.
Yeah.
And sometimes the lesson is not bad. And I used to say this to my kids all the time. I said, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. I said, losing is not an option. We don't lose. What we do is that when we have a setback, when we have a challenge, we learn what caused this. We kind of post-mortem the situation, and we determine what is it? What was the lesson that I needed to take away from this? And so that's one of the things that that I wanted to talk about. And I know you've got a whole bunch of things too. And but I want to say one. I want to throw one real heavy one out here, right?
Sure.
Because you and I have both been on a mystical path of sorts, right?
Yeah.
And our trajectories are a little bit different, but I think that they kind of follow a similar curve.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was saying to myself, I said, self, I want to stop talking about all of this low frequency shit like politics and religion. I want to stop talking about this. And then something hit me that when something is not right, and by not right, this is the only thing that separates right from wrong. Okay, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is does it help or does it harm?
Mm-hmm.
Does it help or does it harm? So when I look at things that I can see actually cause harm
Mm-hmm.
to people, I am going to take it as a solemn obligation to call those things out and to call them out without lowering my vibration or lowering my frequency. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do, I'm not going to dwell on it, but I'm going to point it out. It's like, because the thing is that if you see somebody walking down the street slapping people, oh, almost knocked my glass over. Just coming down the street, slapping people, just slapping the shit out of people, right? And nobody says anything.
Right.
Then this guy is empowered to continue slapping people,
Yeah.
and people feel disenfranchised because they don't feel like they have the voice of the power to speak out against it.
Yeah.
And so it continues. And so I say this because there are a lot of things that are going on in this country right now, and I'm not going to get into any of that specifically. But there's a lot of political bullshit, there's a lot of religious bullshit, there's a lot of societal bullshit, a lot of ethnic bullshit. And the thing is, I think that we have a responsibility to call out that which is harmful. And when I say harmful, that it's universally harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, if somebody calls me a bitch, that pisses me off.
Right.
But it in no way harmed me.
Right.
It hurts me, but it doesn't harm me. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
affect my ability to earn a living, doesn't affect my ability to move freely in society, doesn't affect my ability to speak freely. It doesn't affect or impact, inform or influence any of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I don't like. And I'm not telling y'all to just go out there and call everybody bitches. That's not the point. The point is that people are going to say things that may be hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
And and when it's hurtful, you can deal with that on a personal level. You can deal with it by either confronting it, you can deal with it by ignoring it, you can deal with it by tabling it. But when it's hurt, you're not really under any moral obligation
Mm-hmm.
to act. But when it's harm, I think that we have a moral obligation to act, that we could do in such a way that we don't lower our vibration and we still continue to produce the manifestation in our world that we want to. So anyway, that's my little opening to all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's. I mean, that makes sense, right? It's pretty easy to. Where it gets fuzzy is, and this goes to, and again, I don't want to get sidetracked on this, but it goes to the information crisis or disinformation crisis that we have because of social media and stuff like that. So, for example, and I'm not taking the side on this because I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't want anybody calling me a bitch. But vaccines, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a group that vaccines are what they say they are. We're preventing the spread of, eradicating measles, the flu, whatever. So it's a moral obligation to get vaccinated. If you don't get vaccinated, you're potentially causing harm. But then you've got another group that thinks, no, that's all bullshit. Vaccines are actually incredibly harmful. Mm-hmm. And if you take the vaccine or you give someone else, encourage someone else to take the vaccine, whatever, I guess you wouldn't be given it unless you're in the medical field.
Right.
but you're contributing to harm, right? And so I think, yeah, we can say on a general plane, it's pretty obvious in a lot of things what's causing harm, what's not causing harm. The problem that I think we have in the culture today is there's so much disinformation and everybody's doing their own research, right? And so there you go.
Yeah.
So I think it does become murky in that respect. I'll tell you where I'm at with some of this, because I've had the same, like, it's interesting. I we've always done this. I mean, for the 5 years or whatever that we've done this, we've always talked about New Year's resolutions, resetting. I bet if you went back to every show we've done around New Year's, we've talked about this. And I saw a post this week that I found really interesting. And this is not, I'm not disparaging the person that made the post. It was just a perspective that I had to think about. And I ended up not agreeing with the post. So I'll just let you know that in front. So I'm not disparaging the person. But I thought, wow, that post really made me think. Was they said, they were kind of going off on the Gregorian calendar and the fact that, just because the calendar says it's a new year, you're not really stepping into a new year. In fact, we're in the middle of a winter season when when nature itself is kind of retreating and dying and what have you. And so they really, the way I took the post was they framed this entire grievance around New Year's resolutions and New Year's celebrations because of the Gregorian calendar, right? And so it took me back a little bit. I thought, it really, and we've talked about this in the past, there's nothing magical about January 1st, but it does give us a certain opportunity to reflect and set goals and kind of move with that sort of corporate social momentum of New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. So I thought about it. I thought, well, they're kind of right. And then I thought, we have such a culture of grievance. And I think that's where I'm at in terms of my own personal vibration. Like, I really am frustrated with the culture of grievance that is created, especially on social media, where it's almost like I know I could get likes and shares and follows and whatever if I just let's just take deconstruction.
Yep.
I stay in the deconstruction grievance mode of religion sucks and the Bible's terrible and all of this stuff. But then I have to sit back and think, but then I feel like I'm contributing to a culture of grievance, right? Yep. Like, I don't think that we ever while I agree with you, I want to be really, really clear. I agree with you. Your illustration's perfect. If somebody's going down the street slapping somebody and you just sit there and don't do anything, you're participating in the problem by your non-participation, right? By not calling it out. I get that. But then on the extreme end of it, I guess I would say people make their hay out of just creating a culture of grievance. Like, we're going to find anything we can just grieve about. Like, the Gregorian calendar is, some colonized something or other. Like, okay, whatever. I mean, and so I don't want to contribute to the culture of grievance.
Yep.
And then I thought about this some more, and I thought, well, technically we just came out of the winter solstice. So if you want to use nature, because in this post they were using nature to talk about, we're in the middle of winter, spring is a better time to celebrate. But in actuality, the days are going to start getting longer now, and so light, if we want to use old paradigms, is triumphing
over darkness.
Over darkness, right? So it makes perfect sense then to set this time of year apart as a time when we reflect on our lives. If you want to think about nature, during winter is retreating, right? So if you think about it, especially from a more ancient point of view, the reptiles go underground, the bears are hibernating, the leaves, the trees aren't bearing fruit. So it does seem like a natural time, a natural rhythm to be introspective and to also say, I'm going to begin to build something for this next year so that when we do hit the spring solstice and, we cross that threshold of light to darkness, I have something to show for, because you have to plant before you can reap, right?
Yep.
And so for me personally, I'm still wrestling with the whole, I don't want to be a part of the culture of grievance because I don't think anything positive was ever built on a negative.
Right.
In other words, I don't think just being against something, constantly deconstructing, constantly being against something, at some point you have to come up with an alternative vision. At some point you have to come up with, this is where we, why we left what we left, but we got to build something.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything positive was ever built on a negative, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Now you
makes
can build
perfect
a
sense.
following, you can make a shit ton of money. I mean, the news media proves that, right?
Yep.
Because we're wired for those kind of responses. So there's that thing. And then the second part that I kind of want to steer the conversation into, if you're okay with that, is
Yep.
looking at myself and thinking, I need a break from the past. And I don't mean a break from a past like my 15-minute break on my 9 to 5 job. Like I'm gonna, take a break from my past and then go back
Like
to
parting company with.
yeah. I need my path to diverge in a different direction. And that means acknowledging mistakes that I've made, but not wallowing in the shame or regret over mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
Right. And realizing, and I really love this idea that the future is pulling us, exerting force on our present to pull us into something,
Yep.
as opposed to our past pushing us into something. Because if our past is pushing us into something, then all I have to look at is the momentum from the past, right? I guess like rear wheel drive versus front wheel drive. Good car illustration there or something, but like it's pushing. I'm here where I am because of my past choices.
Mhm.
And then, what does that leave me with? Versus there is something in my future that is affecting my present, invading my present, and moving me in that direction. And so that means letting go of regret, letting go of guilt, letting go of shame, letting go of self-doubt, letting go of fear, letting go of repetitive thinking.
Yep.
What is it, the old saying, if you do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, it's the definition of insanity.
Yep.
We get stuck in those patterns because they just become habitual to us, right? And they're habitual because of what we did in the past.
Yep.
If I hadn't developed a habit of having a drink on Friday nights, not that it's a habitual problem, but I think you get the point.
Yeah.
If that had never existed, we wouldn't be having drinks tonight, right? And
Right.
so we look at a lot of things from our past, and so we end up framing our present based on our past rather than framing our present based on the future. And so that's where my thinking is as we cross over into this year of 2026.
And that's really good, Aaron, because this is something, I've talked to you about this a lot. I'm really into this manifestation thing, right?
Yeah.
And so manifestation begins with what? A thought, right? When did the Mona Lisa begin to exist? Did it begin to exist after Da Vinci finished painting it, when he put his last brushstroke on it, or did it begin to exist when he conceived it in his mind? Right? So I think that everything begins to be reality when it's conceived, when it's a thought. And so here's the challenge, right? That it's our thoughts and our dreams that we're trying to manifest, right? So we're trying to pull a future state into our present, right? So to your point, the future is pulling us instead of the past pushing us or the past being drag on us. But this is the challenge, right? And you check me on this if I'm wrong, because I'm like, okay, I want to practice conscientious mindfulness. That I'm in this moment, and so in this moment, I'm fully aware of my thought. I'm fully aware of what I want my future state to be. I'm calling on this. I'm putting pressure on this as a covenant with myself to move forward. But in mindfulness, I'm in this moment.
Yeah.
And this moment doesn't look at my past judgmentally. It just simply says, okay, this is where you are. Let's review the lesson of how we got here, but not in a judgmental way. And if we can do that, if we can look at our situations, circumstances, without judgment, then I think that helps to springboard us into the future state, the future reality that we're trying to manifest. So, I'm very careful about that. Like, and not just with myself, Louis. Hush. Um, we both have barking
Oh
dogs.
gosh, I know. I keep thinking she's going to get over it.
I'm not. What I'm very conscientious about is to not judge myself by my past, but I also have to be careful about others and not judging them by their past, right? Because I'll give you an example. We could say that based on uh, things that have happened in this country to black folks and Native Americans, that there's a lot of blame, right? And so we could get caught up in that blame and say, okay, until there's an apology or until there's some kind of fix, there's some kind of remedy, we can't move forward. But what I can say is that I don't have to dwell on that. It happened. Yes, I was a victim of this, or my people were a victim of this, but I have the opportunity now to make a change, or to drive it in a different direction, to let the future pull me instead of the past pushing me. And so, being in mindfulness, I sit with a thought without judgment. I'm not judging the thought, and this is this and hear me, because this is hard for me, because I said to I was in a group chat with my god brothers and sisters earlier today, and I said, well, there are three things that this country needs to deal with. One is that it never dealt with the concept of liberty, or the paradigm of liberty, to blacks and Native Americans. Two, we didn't punish the Confederacy enough for what they did. And three, that we're not things that happened in the past. We're not remedying these, and we're not reflecting on them enough. But I caught myself. I mean, I made the post in the group, and then I thought about it afterward, and I said, even if I never get an apology, I mean, because there are people there are individuals who have wronged me over time, and I will never get an apology from them. I will never get any restitution from them. But do I dwell on that and say, okay, until this is remedied, I can't move forward? And that's where I think that's where the challenge is. I think that to your point, we have to look at what is the ideal state, what is the idealized state that we're looking for, and that's what we're trying to manifest. So if I'm trying to manifest this idealized state, I can't do it with an anchor of hurt from the past on me. And this is a hard one, man. We always talk about growing in real time. I'm having one of these moments because I'm sitting up here thinking about this. I say, man, America owes a debt to a lot of people, but at the same time, we can either dwell on this, or we can say, okay, what is the path forward? What is the path forward? And let that drive us. And so anyway, I'm having a moment here. I'm literally having a moment, because I always say I want to be mindful. I want to be in the moment. I want to be aware of how I feel and what I'm thinking right now, and I don't want it to be colored or tainted by my past, by my mistakes, or by the mistakes of others against me. I want to be present, because I need to do what I need to do to bring this that's in my head and in my heart into three-dimensional reality. Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah, perfect.
So I'm sitting up here thinking, you made me think and made me process this in real time. I can't do that anymore. I can't sit up and stress over the past, And this is not to say, and y'all hear me, please hear me, because I'm not saying that Black people haven't been victimized, the Native Americans haven't been victimized. Yes,
Right.
that absolutely happened. But individually, how do we deal with that? Right? We can say we want some group restitution or whatever, but in the meantime, what do we do individually to help overcome the circumstances that we face as a result of that? And now I have to say, okay, what is it? What is it in this now? Because the past has already been foreclosed upon,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the future I don't have the deed to.
Right.
All I have, the title deed that I have to anything right now is right now.
Right.
So I have to dwell in this space and process where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what am I feeling right now.
Mm-hmm. No, it's interesting because before we jumped on, I was having a conversation with someone who's from an underprivileged group,
Mhm.
times a couple. um, I don't want to say too much because I didn't ask permission to share this, right? But they made the comment when we were talking, and I didn't respond to it. I just was listening. But talking about how difficult life had been for them and some recent events, and so they really are coming to this realization that no one's coming to save me. Like,
Yeah.
this person was saying this, no one's coming to save me. Like, I'm looking externally, like I would love help with this, or the financial burdens because of situations. I've reached out to people, they're always too busy, or they're too there's a reason why they can't help out or whatever. And this person wasn't speaking financially necessarily, but just in general, right?
Yeah.
And but that statement really hit me. There's no one coming to save me. And there's two different ways to respond to that, right? There's the response of woe is me, which I think is appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm not negating that at all.
Yeah.
But is it helpful? Is it going, like, if that's true, and I think in this instance it's certainly true, and I think
Yeah.
for a lot of us that's true. Okay. Yeah, nobody's coming to save you. So now what? And I think when it comes to manifestation, like the thing that excites me about manifestation is that we can have some sense of control, at least about our own trajectory in life and life that we live and the way that we manifest. And so when you're talking about mindfulness in the moment, like, I think these are just paradigm shifts, right? Like, if we're constantly looking to the past, okay, I mean, at some point and I don't mean this to be insensitive to anyone, because I'm not speaking on social issues here. I'm speaking very generally.
Yeah.
The past is the past, right? Like, it ain't going to get fixed. I mean, if your spouse ran off on you,
Yeah.
okay, they're off living their best life and left you here to deal, or you lost your job, or whatever kind of, I got to watch my health a lot more than I used to have to watch my health. And
You and me both.
summer, I have a checkup in a week, and I had to have my annual echocardiogram today, and I'm just sitting there thinking, this sucks. I remember when I wasn't here, right?
Yeah.
And then when you look out and you think about all the forces, like what would have to change, even like on the social issues, like to think about all the things that would have to change in order for reparations, let's say, to happen.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, that's a big macro thing.
I mean, you have no control over that. You can speak up, you can advocate for it, you can do what you can do, but at the end of the day, that's a big machine that you're trying to fix, right?
Right.
And that can be overwhelming, and that can be discouraging, and that can be depressing, and that can lead to, let's just say, a vibration of hopelessness or helplessness for some people. Just like that person, they were like, on the one hand, when they were sharing, there's this helplessness side to, or hopelessness and helplessness side to nobody's coming to save me. But then you can flip that around and say, well, okay, so then you have to save yourself.
Yeah.
You got to do something yourself. And you can flip that, and that can become empowering, and that can become hopeful if you believe that you have the power to manifest something despite what else is going on around you. And that's what's exciting to me, because there's so many things that we can't control. There's so many things. I mean, it's frustrating to think about the future and think, okay, I'm sitting here today and I'm generally happy and my bills are paid and everybody's more or less healthy and in my life that I want to be in my life. But 6 months, you you look at the new year, you think, shit, what's this year?
Yeah.
You can come into a new year and think like, well, 2025 beat the shit out of me. Like, I'm going to be like Jake Paul with a freaking busted jaw from life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I saw some pictures of him. I spent more time on social media this last week because I've been off and had more time. But, and so this idea of self-empowerment, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is and being mindful in that, because I have power to affect my future by what I'm doing right now, I have to be mindful in the moment.
Yep.
The paradigm shift is there's a future out there that I can create, that's abundant, that's peaceful, that's prosperous, that's healthy. And what I do today is sowing the seeds towards that future. And so I'm going to be mindful of how I'm sowing and tending to those seeds today, but also realize that there's something in the future that's so much more powerful than whatever was against me in the past, that it can literally like pull me out of that and into like almost like quantum leaping into a different timeline where it's as though those past causes now have no effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That dang dog is not going to shut up. I don't know what the hell. I'm going to let you talk. I'm going to mute it. If she's still yapping, I'm going to have to go off screen because
here's the thing, man. It's like my dog is like, well, he's sitting by the door now. He's chilled out, but I don't know, man. And this was another thing too. Is like I had this was years ago. My family and I, we went up to Eureka Springs, Arkansas, to meet up with my Uncle Stevie, who is my dad's youngest brother, at least that we know of. Anyway, we went up there, and so my kids were being particularly rambunctious that day, and I was like, at that time I was very strict about my kids and very disciplinary. And Stevie said, no, he said, kids are just doing what they're supposed to do, and dogs bark. That's what they do, and I have to remember that sometimes, like, I told you we had an incident where a bobcat or a puma or something killed one of our dogs. Right. Mm-hmm. And they were outside at about this time, and they were out there barking, and then you don't hear one barking. You hear just one barking. And, the other one wasn't barking because she was dead. So the point that I'm getting at is that, we use our voice in the way that we think is apropos. Right. Mm-hmm. And you can't tell anybody, right. Like one of the things that I've learned, like you can't tell anybody that they're not hurting.
Correct.
You can't tell anybody that they're not grieving. You just can't. And, right. And you have to respect, the voice of the person who's expressing a concern. And while I'm here, I think that this is something that we can all do better. Right. Like, for example, I had said to someone you and I both know, I said, I was saying, we need to get off the hamster wheel of deconstruction. And so what you were talking about is like, grievance culture is absolutely correct. We don't want to get caught up in that. But if someone is speaking out on this, Well, we can't say whether or not this is something that's hurting them. Now we can say we can look at this and say this is probably not harming you, my guy, right? It may be hurting. But is this harmful? No. And the same thing, we have to be sensitive to the voice of the hurting.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And so you know, I'm tracking with you. It's just that I was thinking about this in terms of the dogs. You know, they were out there yap 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 yap. And I'm like, they're doing dog. You know, dogs doing dog. They're out there barking. You know, because that's what the fuck they do. But then one stopped barking. And so I look back on it because now I look at everything from the standpoint of what was the lesson mm-hmm. that I needed to take away from this. And the lesson that I took away from that is that sometimes somebody's screaming at the top of their lungs like their hair is on fire because they think that there's something harming them. Mm-hmm. And if you don't hear that, if you don't heed that, you know, somebody might actually get harmed. So I think that there's, you know, it's a delicate balancing act that between, you know, hearing the voice of the downtrodden and the disenfranchised or the hurting, you know, the grieving, and whether or not this is actually something that we need to deal with. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a balancing act. And yeah. Again, it's like now I'm looking at everything like you know, Maya was just so devastated when we found Coco and she was dead. And she was mm-hmm. devastated by that, and she was like, why, and I felt bad for her, but at the same time, I'm like thinking to myself, I said, what is the lesson that I have to take away from this? That was my. And I'm not saying that I was right. I'm not saying that that's the answer. I'm just saying that that's what, you know, that's the state of mind that I'm in now. It's like when something happens, I'm like, okay, what was I supposed to learn from this? What can I unpack in this that will somehow make me a better person, that will make me more sensitive, more aware, more astute? And yeah, so that was
yeah you make a really good point. And just to be clear, you know, just for my own self, I don't want to contribute to what I would call a culture of grievance. Let me give you an example. So deconstruction, right? Uh-huh. So my entire Facebook presence prior to deconstruction was, I don't even know, like 400 friends and posting pictures of food.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got to such a point in the deconstruction process, and I was processing anger and I was processing grief. And, you know, it's quite something to think that, to find out the medicine is making you more sick rather than actually helping you. That's how it felt to me, right? Like this thing that I thought was the answer for my whole life has actually made me sicker instead of better in some respects.
Yep. Made you bitter instead of better.
Yeah. And so I took to Facebook therapeutically.
Yep.
To be honest with you, and I would pick fights. I would pick fights with religious people, and I would get in the comments and just argue and go back and forth and whatever. But I was doing it consciously, like mindfully. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to get on because this is my this terrible thing to admit, but this is my weight bag.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go beat the shit out of it because I'm going to feel better afterwards.
Yeah. You know I mean? Exactly. Nothing like punching a punching bag.
Yeah. And, you know, and people would take the bait, and here's the thing. And then my presence like increased exponentially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then that season passed, like you go through stages of grief, right?
Yep.
And so I think it's a very personal choice. I think that you make a really good point that when other people are like we really shouldn't should on ourselves, which I just did,
Yeah.
but we probably shouldn't should on other people too. Like my path is not your path, or
Yeah.
um, where I'm at's not where you're at. So if you're giving voice to something, it's not my place to tell you that it's time to move on from that, or that it's no big deal, or that you just get over it. Like it's not my place to say that, right? And I think you make a really good point in that sort of balancing act
Mhm.
of things. And I think if we boil it down to intention, the intention can meet on the ground of let's create a better world for ourselves and for other people.
Mhm.
The methodologies could be different, right? But
Yeah.
if we could meet at that higher place and say we both want the same thing, um, and then be aware of our own intentions. When is it worn out? Right? Like, so for me, eventually deconstruction was like, how long are you going to sit in this, Aaron? How long are you going to just sit there and keep rehashing this over and over and over again? Because I was able to move through the process, right? So it's not right for me to sit there and say, cast judgment on someone else's process, but I can cast judgment on my own process in the sense that, not that I'm condemning, but in
Yeah.
the sense that I can say, okay, for me and my house,
Yeah.
it's time to move on.
Right.
It's time to move on to something else, and here's why. Um, and so I think those are. I think sometimes if we can understand what the intent is behind people, and sometimes I don't think we look deep enough, and we don't look deep enough even within ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Okay, we a lot of times we look at others without considering ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and and again, like to speak on the deconstruction movement, right? Because I have to admit, that I kind of reached a point. I said, okay, you got to get to the point where you're doing something, and I still believe that. I still believe that if you're on the deconstruction path, you should hit a fork in the road, and you say, I'm going to go this way or that way. That you're either a Jeff Turner or you're Aaron Tomlinson, right? And, you have to decide which way you're going to go. But for the person who's sitting there at a point of indecision, I don't think that I think that I unfairly judged some people that were at the point of indecision. And let me say this, that the only issue that I had is that people who were at the point of indecision, that they were marketing that.
Well, but here's the flip side of that though too, right? So from my perspective, just in general, the way I've encountered a lot of deconstruction, yes, they're marketing it.
Yeah.
And then the ones that aren't are like, this is what they can't see. That's frustrating for me. And that may sound really arrogant, but like the image that comes to my mind is almost like stalking an ex-girlfriend or something.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like she broke up with you, or she hurt you, you broke up with her, or she cheated on you, or you felt betrayed. You
Yeah.
felt betrayed. And that's what a lot of people, when they deconstruct from religion, especially if they were really devoted and really sincere, they feel betrayed by the system, or they feel betrayed by the faith, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to move through that. You have to heal from that. You have to move through that. You have to. Otherwise, you cannot create the life for you that you want to create. Now we're all in process, and we want to respect the process, but let's don't kid ourselves. You can get stuck in the process.
Yeah.
And then life can become really crappy. And so for me, a lot of these, because we know some of the same people,
Yeah.
and we've both called some of them out, like, you're like the creepy stalker that keeps looking at his girlfriend to see who she's dating. Like, you're still allowing religion and the church and Jesus and whatever else that you say hurt you and betrayed you
Right.
to control the conversations that you're having.
Right. Yeah, it's living rent free in your head.
Exactly. And so, I mean, we wouldn't look at us, and I mean this very seriously, because I had to come to grips with the fact that there are some very sincere, genuine people who do a lot of good in the world because of their faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, man, I wouldn't like, one of the things that we dealt with in the church was like, if you were a stalker, abusive, like, we didn't play around with that. You know what I
No,
mean?
no, I'm the same. I was the same way.
And so at some point, it's like, even though they don't want to hear it, even though they get offended by it, and it's real easy to come back and say, well, you're just not listening to my grief, or you're just not, respecting my process. It's like, my God, you've been in process for 12 years. Like, quit stalking the Facebook of your ex,
So, so,
It's
so you bring up a really good point, because like there's a line between grief and obsession.
yeah, that's the point. That's a really good way to say it, Derek. That's exactly.
Because a lot of times, okay, you grieve, you have a loved one that you lose, and you grieve, you cry, you vent, but then you start building shrines to them.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
It's not.
It's not.
And
And
you're not gonna. The thing is, you're not gonna. Someone that's stuck in that cycle, they're not just gonna wake up one day and be like, "It's time to let go." Why would they, right? So there has to be some provocative voices in your life, even if you get pissed off at them,
yeah.
even if they come as a lesson and not as a blessing, right? But oftentimes there has to be something that provokes you, and sometimes. And the research bears this out. I remember seeing some research, psychological research years ago, that sometimes it takes an offense for people to actually change.
Yeah.
And so you may say something. I know there were people that said stuff to me that offended me, and this is how I know, like, because people say shit all the time, right? Especially in the social media environment. But if I'm ruminating on it, there's probably a grain of truth in it. It may not be totally undistorted and pure, but there's probably a grain of truth. They probably saw something in me that I need to look at myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't be ruminating on this as much as I'm ruminating on it, right? And so sometimes, it just takes that. So,
but I want to throw you a shout out, because you need people. I always say this all the time. You need people in your life who know you, KNOW, and you need people who NO you, right? And or people that will force you to reevaluate a paradigm. And so I say this like that. There are 4 people in my life, that I would say rescue me from atheism. That's my wife, Maya. That's you. That's my sister Sandy, and Jube. These are the 4 people that they, that you guys were all like, "Hey, pump your brakes, dude. I see where you're going. I understand what you're saying. I understand how you feel, but stop and reconsider this." And it helped me. And you have to first of all, you have to be sentient enough that when you have people in your life, first of all, who can speak contrary to your belief pattern. And that can share something. And I even say my mom to another degree, because she would say to me, she said, "Okay, I know you don't believe in God like I do, but believe in yourself. I taught you that." And so that's those people that have looked at where I was going, and they said, "I see where you're going. I see how you feel. I understand, but have you considered this?" And so I'm grateful for people in my life like that, but not everybody has that. Because, and for different reasons, some people don't have that because they live in echo chambers.
Mm-hmm.
And the only people that they talk to are people that think like them, or there are people that talk to them, but they don't hear it because they're like, that's not part of my echo chamber, so I don't want to hear it. And so I think that part of it, that in order to grow, you have to have people in your life that speak to you against the grain of your thinking, your paradigmatic thinking, right? Because otherwise, you just kind of go on and everybody's yay, no, you can't have that.
I think it's interesting because two situations come to mind. I don't know how we got off on this, but if you want to change the subject after this, please.
Go for it.
But I'm thinking about two situations this last summer. Both of them happened this last summer. Because I started to pivot. I really started to pivot in July away from deconstruction and back into a more how do I say it? Emphasis, more of an emphasis on what I was doing in spirituality with myself first, my own spiritual life. And I never fully embraced atheism. I never did.
Nope.
It was really good for me to go down that road, and I don't regret a minute of it. I'm very thankful for that time.
No, but it's cool because if you don't flirt with it, you haven't deconstructed.
Yeah.
I hold fast to that.
Yeah, it's kind of living in that echo chamber, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I really had to take an honest evaluation of myself, of my own experiences, of my life, of my thoughts, and kind of shut out voices so that it's like, okay, what's my voice? What's my experience? What's my thoughts on this? Not just being influenced by a group, right? Because otherwise to me, we're just back in religion.
Yeah.
And that's the root of the problem to me. Like the root of the problem, yeah. I mean, do I think the doctrine of original sin is toxic? Absolutely. Do I think the doctrine of eternal conscious torment is horrific and toxic? Absolutely. Do I think that trying to live your life by the Bible as though it is the absolute inerrant word of God is going to give you the best life possible? I absolutely do not believe that at all. Right? So I think there are some really toxic elements just psychologically to the whole doctrine stuff. But at the root of it is a self-betrayal. At the root of it is a self-betrayal. Because I think intuitively, like, who wants to believe, well, I can't say that. When you have a child and you see that baby come out and, you're you're not even halfway, you're an eighth way normal person. A 16th, 32nd of 1/100th of an inch of a normal person. You can look at that and say that's trash, that's garbage, that's deserving of eternal unconscious torment because of something two naked vegans did when they talked to a snake and ate at the wrong tree. I mean, like, there's something really, really wrong with that. So to me, the root problem was this self-betrayal of, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't resonate, this doesn't really improve my life, this leads to guilt and shame and all kinds of crazy stuff, but I'm following it anyway because this is what the group is saying.
Yeah.
And the social trade-off is such that I will betray myself to get the level of acceptance, affirmation, whatever it is that I'm getting from the group, right? To sense of belonging, which is really important. Those things are really, really important. I'm not downgrading those. And so for me, as I'm processing this stuff, it's like, what is authentic to me with the group excluded? And I was like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to give voice to the things that are important to me and the things that I believe in. And two incidents where one, sharing a meal with someone and we were having great fellowship, as we would have said back in the day, but this person is totally deconstructed. And I don't know that they're an atheist. I think they must be, because the whole tone of the conversation, everything, the whole meal changed when they said, "You mean you're not an atheist?" And I just looked at him and said, "No, absolutely not." And Derrick, I'm not kidding you, man. Like, give me the check.
Wow.
Like, conversation ended. I'm out. That's toxic.
Well, that's like that podcast episode that you were telling me about, where the guy was like, "Oh, you're hanging out with Derrick Day. You must be an atheist." You're like, "Whoa, no,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I had that one too. That one was fun. But that's toxic.
yeah,
You're enjoying it, but because I don't agree with you on this one principle, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't share the same convictions about this.
yeah,
And that's how you're going to treat me. That says more about you, and what it says is not good. You've got a problem.
yeah,
And then I began to pivot in the middle of the summer, about July, and all I was saying was, I'm not going to continue to build on a negative. I'm not going to continue to hang out and spy on my ex. I was talking about myself.
right,
I was doing a lot of self-reflection. And I had this person contact me, and we did a Zoom call. They later openly lied publicly and said we never had a conversation.
mm-hmm.
And in that conversation, this person came at me and said, "You're attacking my teachings. You're attacking what I stand." And I'm like, "No, this is what's going on." Like, I clarified, this is what's going on. And they had watched my video, Derrick, my previous video, and they said, "No, from timestamp." They had the timestamps from like 5:15:53 to 23:20. You are talking about me. And I'm like, I hate to tell you, like, I'm thinking this. I didn't say this because it would be rude, but I'm thinking to myself, I don't ever think about you. Like, I'm sorry. This process has nothing to do with you.
And you're like me in that regard, because I always say to people, listen, if I'm talking about you, I'm going to send you a message and let you know, hey, I'm going to talk about you. There's no ambiguity. I'm not going to, say something and let it be a thinly veiled reference. I'm going to let you know, dude, here's what's coming. Here's what's coming. I'm about to talk about this because we had this conversation, and that's what I do. And so I always trip out on this when people like to make something about them that has absolutely nothing to do with them.
Absolutely.
And you and I have experienced over the last 5 years that we've been doing this. It was 6 years this year that we've been doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. But to me, then, you're just like the group you left. Like, you don't agree with me. We disagree on this issue. And so therefore you're anathema to me. You are, it's like reading the scriptures where it says, if someone, mark those that cause division amongst you and have nothing to do with them. Don't eat with the brother that believes in thus and so. And so you're so against this toxic system, but you've recreated the system because you haven't really gone deep enough to address the actual core issues. And that is toxic. That is toxic. So anyway, probably enough about that, but it does point to the overall arcing theme of manifestation, because what are we generating? What are we manifesting? How are we showing up for people, right? Like, how am I showing up for you? Like, what would have been like for us if you made some really strong atheist statements back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And like, you talk about, the 4 people in your life or whatever, but what would have been like if I'd have been like, if I'd have taken that person, like, let's just say we had a post theology Friday, or Freeology, not theology, Freeology Friday conversation, and got into this discussion about atheism, and I was challenging or whatever. Let's say we didn't acquiesce to each other. I didn't say.
But you did challenge me. And here's the point. This is another thing too that I think, and I'm not saying to put either one of us on a pedestal, but I will say this, that one of the things that people need to learn is how to interface with one another and not make it, ad hominem.
Yeah, and so my point is, like, then you go out the next day, let's say we do that, and Saturday you got, posts about, and let's say you even throw in something about something we talked about because it made you think or whatever,
Yep.
right? Like, and this is all Bible for beginner, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you fucker, why are you coming against me so hard?
Yeah.
What kind of person is that? It blows my mind, right?
Yeah.
Or on foot, shoe on the other foot. I'm like using scripture on Sunday Morning Live or something, and you just put a bunch of Bible by Bull. And then I'm quoting the Bible to substantiate something that I'm saying, and then you come back at me and say, "Well, fuck you, you're just a brain dead idiot or what." I mean, you're like,
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I just don't get it. It's anyway part of the past that I'm putting back there in 2025. But I think it's relevant to the discussion, and I don't think people see it modeled. One of the things that I love so much about our relationship and about the shows that we've done in the past is that I don't think there is a hot potato issue when we were doing Phreology Friday that we didn't touch.
No.
And several times, and from totally different backgrounds.
Yep.
And
not always agreeing.
And not always agreeing. And yet being able to model, I think, for people real dialogue. And that's why I think the growing in real time was so powerful and so important, right? Because we were open to each other. We knew that we loved each other. And you could say things to me and I'd be like, Derrick, I can't tell you how many times I said that's some good preaching right there. Or, or we would say back and forth, I'm growing in real time. And that's what's missing. Like, that's where I think, just to bring it back to culture of grievance, like we just get in these echo chambers where we're just the only people we're speaking to are not people that can really move the needle. We're just speaking to people who are on our team.
Yeah.
And we're like given the Saturday night or Friday night locker room rah-rah speech to our team, but not really moving the needle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's really missing. We've talked about this a lot, like that openness of dialogue, mutual respect, where you can have sharp and strong agreements, or strong disagreements, or I want to listen to you as a Black person in America, and what your experience was like, without getting defensive,
right,
and saying, well, I didn't do that. That was my ancestors, or you just need to get over it, or what. But, because out of that white fragility and whatever that we have, but to be able to sit there and really listen and then grow in real time from that and expand my worldview to be more inclusive and more understanding and more empathic about social issues and situations.
Yep.
And then for you also to be able to allow me to share my experiences without accusing me of white fragility or being a racist or whatever the case may be. And I don't know too many places where that kind of dialogue takes place. And I think it's that kind of dialogue that is going to help us build a better future for everybody.
Yeah,
and one thing I so appreciate about you and the person you are and what we've built together over the years.
Likewise, man. Just knock something over. This is the thing. I think that that part of what we can do in 2026, as far as manifesting a better future for ourselves, but not just manifesting for ourselves, but manifesting for the world in a broader construct. When we rang in the new year, May and I were toasting with the kids, and she said something, and it's something that resonated with me. It's something that I've always said. I want to help people achieve their dreams without causing harm to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so Maya said this as a mantra. She said, with harm to no one.
I love that.
With harm to no one. And so we're speaking our manifestations, speaking our affirmations, and we followed it with those words, with harm to no one. And I think that if we individually can say, okay, I'm going to have this conversation with you, but this conversation, let me use this as a guardrail, that there will be no harm
Yeah.
from my mouth, from my heart, from my spirit.
Yeah.
And if we say that, we approach it from that standpoint with no harm, with harm to no one.
Yeah.
I think that's let me just say this, that there are things that I'm speaking in terms of manifestation for in 2026. But if I said, like for example, like when Maya and I came together, I jokingly say that we kind of manifested each other, but it was with harm to no one, with harm to no one. And as we go through our lives together and we talk about what we want to achieve and we want to manifest, we say with harm to no one. And I think that if each one of us will take that as a call to action,
Mm-hmm.
to say, I want a home, but I don't want your home, because if I want your home, I'm going to do this with harm to you.
Yeah.
I want a relationship, but I don't want your mate, because I want this relationship with harm to no one. And I think that if there's anything that has framed our relationship, you and I,
Mm-hmm.
that everything that we do is like with no harm to each other.
Yeah.
Right. There's no malice. There's no there's no negativity. And I think that if we can approach each other, not just you and I, but as we approach others in a broader construct, then we say, okay, with harm to no one.
Mm-hmm.
With harm to no one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe we're getting to the end here, but just an idea to explore. This is where I think, again, manifesting, co-creating our own reality, like it's up to me. If it's going to be, it's up to me.
Yep. It's going to be, it's up to me.
The realization then that at the end of the day, I am responsible as much as is within my power. I am responsible for the type of life that I manifest and the way I show up in the world.
Yep.
Then at the end of the day, that now this may not be true, but this is a frame that is helpful for me, a belief frame that's helpful for me. Whether it's true or not, it's helpful. You really can't harm me.
Yep.
Because that would be to usurp my own power, right? Like, now, I mean, obviously, you or I could go out and get murdered tonight. I mean, you know what I mean? So obviously there's caveats. I'm not going out tonight.
Right.
Anybody out there saying, don't speak that into existence, I am staying right here. But you know what I mean? Like there's an element of confidence. There's an element of belief in yourself.
Yep.
Where it's like, I can overcome whatever comes my way. And so that lends itself then to more of an openness. Like you are not the problem. If you can harm me, if you can hurt me, if your ideas can harm me, if your ideas can hurt me and shut me down and destroy my life, then I got a real problem, and I'm not going to be able to be open to your ideas, right? But if I realize that at the end of the day, you can't, or you're not going to, even if you have the intention, and I'm just speaking you collectively, people out there, even if you have the intention, at the end of the day, I'm gonna stand firm in my own sovereignty and power.
Yep.
And we'll see where we end up.
Amen. I think that's a good place to land the plane.
This was good tonight. definitely taking a break. Life's
Yeah.
been kind of crazy for both of
Yeah,
us.
life's been lifing. Life's been lifing hard.
It has. And I just want to give you a shout out. Like I went through something, I haven't put it out there at all. But you know, you've supported me and been a good sounding board for me, and that just really means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just appreciate you and love you so much, because you know, if I'd have gotten pissed off and said, what is this Bible? But fuck that guy.
Well, and
I would have cut myself off from that support. You know,
let me say this about that. When I did that Bible bullshit for beginners, right? I was trying to elicit an emotional response, because a lot of times people don't move unless they're shocked.
No, I agree, 100%,
You know,
1,000% agree with you. And
but
by the way, I never had a problem with that. I'm just trying to give
no,
illustration.
no. I stopped it because Maya told me this when we first got together. She said, "Baby, that you're making some good points, but you're coming across really hard, and just think about not grieving people as you're doing this." And so I listened to her, and my sister Sandy, she said some similar things, and I just at the end of the day, I do believe that there's something greater than humanity. That there's some force greater than humanity. I don't believe in the biblical God. Can't I can't square with that anymore.
Mhm.
But I think that there's an interconnectedness and interdependency that ties us all together, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with not knowing everything. Although I think that the arc of science leads to knowledge. So I'm borrowing from Dr. King on that one, because he says, like, the arc of humanity leads to justice or something like that.
Mm.
So I was borrowing from that, but
Sure.
but anyway,
Sure.
Dude, I'm in 2026, as in 2025, and in the years past. I want to tell you, I'm grateful for you, and I love you so much. That's it.
Same here, man. 100%.
So,
yep. Well, so everybody can expect us to be back.
Yeah, we'll be back.
We're gonna come up with, if anybody has an idea for a name, like the show with no name, with no topic. Won't you join us?
You know what? Hey, let me throw this out here to the people that are watching the show. Think of a name. What do you think? What do you think we should call the show?
Give us ideas.
Yeah, because we're moving on from Phreology Friday. We're not doing the agnostic Gnostics or Gnostic agnostic anymore. But something catchy. And this is what I'll do. That if you come up with something catchy, I'll send you a free copy of my book.
Yeah, the thing with the Gnostic agnostics, right, is it was too limiting for me. I mean, it's just
yeah, I understand. Here was the thing with that, is that when we were talking about that, I was like, okay, if we're going to talk about the Bible, let's do it in a better way. That was my thought. But to your point, it was very limiting. It was very constrained, and it didn't allow for us to get into some of the other topics that we get into. So anyway,
you know what's going to happen. We're going to come back to Phreology Friday. It really is a great title.
It is, and it was so funny, because like that started off almost 4 years before you and I started doing it. Yep. And my big shout out to my friend Tony Calloway. He had this 3-chord strand conference call, right? Mm-hmm. And he asked me to do a segment of it, and so I said, okay, I'm going to call this Phreology Friday. And I started talking about things, and I did it on the conference call. Then I started doing it on video on Facebook Live, and then I realized, I said, something, I don't really know. As I'm a smart guy, but I mean, I need somebody else. you know, and you were the first person that I came to, and you answered the call. So
It's been great. It's been a great thing. It'd be funny if we came back to that,
yeah,
um, but yeah, going forward, I think we talked and both committed to focusing on manifestation for sure,
yeah,
helping people manifest, and each other as well, holding each other up and supporting each other in
yeah,
that. For me personally, I'm focused on spirituality, but relational
yeah,
spirituality,
yeah.
which could be very confused with Christianity. Jesus is not
No, I like where you're going.
ship, but that's not what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But I do think that this relational component is built into the structure of reality, and so I'm exploring that. Me personally, that's what I'm gonna be doing. And then, yeah, as we go forward into the new year, talking about who knows, whatever kind of topics. But I thought tonight was great.
Yeah,
But definitely both. I think individual. I think it's safe to say both individually focused on manifesting
yeah.
our dreams.
Yeah.
In
So in this year, I'm going to start. I'm going to kick off my podcast again. It's going to be called the Kaizen Way,
love it.
and it's using Kaizen principles. In other words, using small incremental changes to produce big results. And we're going to talk about that from the standpoint of manifestation, but also management, leadership, relationships. The Kaizen principles can be applied to a lot of different things.
Yep.
So,
yep. Good stuff. So I'm ready. I'm ready, man. I'm like revived.
Listen, man.
Revival.
We're kicking ass and taking names, and we're fresh out of ink and paper. So guess what we're gonna do? We're kicking a lot of ass this year.
Damn Skippy.
All right, Aaron. Love you, man.
Love you too. Love everybody for watching.
Love y'all. Thanks for watching. And we will catch you guys the next time.